Good to see you again. This is ARIRANG News coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. We begin with news from the presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae. President Park Geun-hye has named the head of Korea's spy agency as her new chief of staff. She also replaced her senior press secretary and appointed 4 additional advisors. For details, let's bring in our presidential office correspondent Choi You-sun. So You-sun, months of speculation has finally ended.
Hi, Hyun-kyung. Speculation had brewed that President Park's Chief of Staff Kim Ki-chun will step down to take responsibility for a discord within the presidential office that followed a controversial document leak late last year. Kim had also come under fire for his role in the president's series of failed personnel appointments, including 2 prime minister nominees who were forced to resign last year. Earlier today, President Park went against media speculation and named National Intelligence Service Director Byung-kee to be her new chief of staff. A career diplomat, was involved in President Park's primary race back in 2007 and assisted the president in her 2012 presidential election victory. As one of President Park's confidants, the new chief of staff served as the Korean ambassador to Japan after the president took office in 2013. Political watchers say appointing a confidant as a chief of staff reflects the president's determination to transform her leadership style and to better coordinate policies with the ruling party in the 3rd year of her presidency. Hyun-kyung?
And this was certainly a surprise. Now, Cheong Wa Dae also announced who will be replacing I's absence. He's a seat at the spy agency, right?
Right. President Park has named Lee Byung-ho the former deputy director of the spy agency. Having served 26 years in the intelligence community, Lee was also the Korean ambassador to Malaysia. In a likely attempt to improve communication with the public, President Park also replaced her senior press secretary. She named her special cultural advisor, Kim Sung-woo, a career journalist, to replace former press secretary Yoon Do-hyun. President Park, who had named 4 honorary special advisors last month to assist her in running the country, has announced a list of 3 political advisors. Ju Oh-young, Yoon Sang-yeon, and Kim Jae-won are all experienced ruling party lawmakers, having held leadership posts within the party and are close to the president. And lastly, the president added former opposition lawmaker Kim Kyung-jae as her additional press relations advisor. Interesting to note, Kim had crossed party lines to assist President Park in transitioning into the presidential office in 2013. And that's it for now. I'm Choi You-sun reporting on President Park's appointment of her new chief of staff.
All right, many thanks there, You-sun. Now we move on to the last of our 3-part series on the president's performance so far and what's ahead in her 3rd year in office. Today, we are going to focus on foreign policy. Korea is enjoying improved ties with China, but has made little progress on inter-Korean relations and also with relations with Japan. Arirang's Foreign Affairs Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee files this report.
A stronger alliance with the United States and a budding friendship with China are 2 of President Park Geun-hye's most notable diplomatic achievements. The signing of a free trade agreement deepened Seoul's economic cooperation with Beijing, and the 2 neighbors have opened up military channels. But experts say South Korea may find itself in a difficult position between the 2 great powers.
And I would say right now, the missile defense issue and the question of THAAD deployment in South Korea is one place where you can watch this tension really bubbling right up to the surface.
Despite President Park's pledge to improve inter-Korean ties, tensions remain high. Some blame her lack of flexibility for fizzled momentum, like last year's reunions for war-separated families and a surprise visit to the South by a high-level North Korean delegation. Even the unification minister recently admitted that the Park administration's signature trust politique, which focuses on building trust with the North through dialogue and cooperation, failed to make any significant progress. But there are doubts that a fresh approach will be any better as long as Pyongyang maintains its belligerence.
she can try some things to elicit that reciprocity from the North, but until they have a more cooperative attitude, it's very difficult to achieve positive outcomes.
Another task is getting Japan to fully acknowledge its wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. With relations with Tokyo at their worst, experts say Seoul should seek practical cooperation in areas like security and the economy. Since foreign affairs is an area that requires policies with a long-term perspective, experts say it's too early to judge whether the Park administration's diplomacy has been a success or a failure. 황상희, 아리랑 뉴스.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Na Hyung-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
This morning in a city south of Seoul, 3 people were killed by a man in his 70s. So this is all the more shocking because it comes just 2 days after another shooting left 3 people dead. Police say the man, identified by his surname Chun, is suspected of shooting his older brother and his brother's wife after making threats about financial issues. He's also suspected of shooting dead a police officer who arrived on the scene before turning the gun on himself. The initial report was made by the elderly couple's daughter-in-law who jumped out of the window after seeing Chun shoot the couple. She is quoted by authorities as saying Chun had harassed the couple in the past, asking for money whenever he got drunk. Now, officials say a 6-page long note written by Chun prior to the shooting has been collected from his car. The investigation is still underway. Lawmakers are throwing questions at top government officials for a 3rd day and final day at the National Assembly this afternoon. Today's session focuses on the Park administration's social, educational, and cultural policies. Legislators are putting extra emphasis on measures for strengthening crisis management and safety systems, as well as ways to prevent child abuse at daycare centers and strategies for securing the necessary funds to expand the welfare system. The newly appointed Prime Minister Lee Won-gu and 10 other officials, including the nation's welfare, employment, and culture ministers, are in the hot seat for today's session. After a marathon meeting, Korea's nuclear watchdog says it's okay for a 32-year-old nuclear reactor to operate another 10 years. This decision on the Warzone 1 reactor is getting mixed reactions, with area residents still protesting that it poses a grave threat to the neighborhood. 아리랑's Kwon So-ah has the story.
It was on the brink of being decommissioned. But the operational lifespan of the Warzone 1, one of Korea's longest-serving nuclear reactors, has been extended for 10 more years. The nuclear plant, one of 23 in the nation, was temporarily shut down in 2012 for review after its original 30-year lifespan expired. This is the second time a reactor has received an extension in Korea. Similar decisions will have to be made on other reactors in the coming years. Korea's nuclear watchdog gave the state-run nuclear power agency the green light to restart the reactor after its 3rd marathon meeting on the issue this year ended early Friday. 7 members of the commission voted in favor of the extension. 2 boycotted the voting in protest. One of them, Professor Kim Mi-jung, says that during his 18 months as a member of the committee, he thought discussions were very thorough, but this one felt rushed.
The Warzone 1 reactor lacks the safety equipment contained within the Warzone 2, 3, and 4 reactors. That's because advanced technology standards have not been applied on the Warzone 1.
A member who said yes to the extension thinks otherwise.
We reached our conclusion after numerous in-depth discussions. The Korea Institute of Nuclear Safety also evaluated the extension as safe. Safety is our first priority. I hope the public will stop worrying and change their opinion on this issue.
That's unlikely to happen, though, as local residents and environmentalists are furious with the extension and are expected to press the commission to overturn its decision. However, as things stand, the state power operator is expected to put the reactor back into operation sometime in April. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
A top U.S. intelligence official says cyber attacks from foreign countries, including North Korea, are the biggest security threat facing the United States. Along with Iran's, he says Pyongyang's cyber threats can be more disruptive than others. Here's ARIRANG's Kim Min-ji with more.
The United States faces a range of threats, with cyber highest on the list. In testimony to a congressional committee outlining the intelligence community's assessment of global threats to the U.S., James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, said a number of nations stand as cyber threats to the U.S.
Cyber poses a very complex set of threats because profit-motivated criminals, ideologically motivated hackers, or extremists, and variously capable nation-states like Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran are all potential adversaries who, if they choose, can do great harm.
Clapper noted that Russia in particular possesses sophisticated cyber capabilities more severe than previously assessed. Although North Korea and Iran have lesser technical capabilities, he said Pyongyang's alleged hacking of Sony Pictures and Iran's cyber attack on the Las Vegas Sands Corporation demonstrate that these nations are motivated and unpredictable cyber actors. In a report to Congress, Clapper said that North Korea's nuclear program also poses a serious threat to the security environment in the U.S. and East Asia. He said that the North is committed to developing a long-range nuclear-armed missile capable of hitting the United States. The intelligence chief added that the North has expanded its Yongbyon enrichment facility and restarted the reactor, in line with its stated intent to refurbish and restart its nuclear facilities. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
A senior U.S. official has stressed that a U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD, which may or may not be deployed in South Korea, is, quote, purely defensive and would be solely designed to counter ballistic missile threats from North Korea. Speaking in Tokyo this week, Frank Rose, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, said the THAAD system would only be used to defend against short and medium-range ballistic missiles from Pyongyang. Rose added that Russia and China should not feel threatened by the deployment. His latest comments come amid rising complaints from Moscow and Beijing, saying the deployment of THAAD to the Korean Peninsula would threaten their national security. In the meantime, lawmakers in the U.S. will be looking to bolster sanctions on North Korea in a meeting slated for Friday, Washington time. In a press release, the House Foreign Affairs Committee said it will convene the meeting to discuss the North Korea Enforcement Act of 2015. The act, which was introduced by Representative Ed Royce, is aimed at expanding the sanctions to businesses and individuals from a third country doing illegal trading with North Korea. The current sanctions only apply to American businesses and individuals. The push for stronger sanctions on North Korea is a response to Pyongyang's alleged cyber attack on Sony Pictures late last year. Now, North Korea has decided to up the salaries of workers at the Kaesong Inter-Korean factory complex by around 5%. South Korea, which was not consulted prior to the decision, says Pyongyang's move is unacceptable. Connie Kim has more.
In a unilateral move, North Korea has decided to raise its workers' wages at the Inter-Korean Joint Industrial Complex in Kaesong starting from next month. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Thursday that Pyongyang sent a fax message stating that the minimum wage for North Korean workers would be raised to $74 from the current $70.35. Additionally, it also plans to collect overtime payments as Social Security. Since opening in 2004, the Kaesong Industrial Complex has been a symbol of inter-Korean economic cooperation, but Pyongyang's latest action has disappointed Seoul.
The South Korean government is calling on North Korea to improve current systems at the Kaesong Industrial Complex, such as negotiating wages through mutual consultation.
South Korean companies at the joint complex also say a wage settlement is crucial, as the hike will likely burden their management systems. Seoul has offered to meet next month to discuss the issue further, but North Korea declined, only making matters worse. Although the South Korean government says it'll continue to push for a meeting, analysts doubt it'll happen considering the timing. South Korea-U.S. joint military drills are set to kick off next week, despite strong opposition from the north. Experts say that Pyongyang's intention lies in getting an upper hand over Seoul in making decisions at the Kaesong complex, which has been a significant source of income for the north since its opening. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
The identity of the masked man known as the Jihadi John has been unveiled. He's the person appearing in the so-called Islamic State militant group's brutal beheading videos. Our Lee Ji-yoon tells us more.
The infamous Islamic State killer Jihadi John's real name is Mohammed Emwazi. The BBC and the Washington Post first broke the story on Thursday, citing former associates. Several other news outlets then reported that anonymous U.S. intelligence officials had confirmed that Jihadi John is indeed Emwazi. The Kuwait-born British man in his mid-20s comes from a middle-class family and attended college in London. He reportedly then went to Syria just 3 years ago to join the Islamic State group. Emwazi is the man seen in one brutal execution video after another in which he beheaded American journalist James Foley and Japanese journalist Kenji Goto. The BBC reports the U.S. and British authorities determined the identity of Jihadi John several months ago, but didn't make it public for security reasons. The British-based human rights group Cage, which helps Muslim prisoners, says Emwazi was a kind and soft-spoken young man, but that he felt like he was often harassed by security officials simply because he was Muslim. Various reports also say British officials suspected that Emwazi was trying to join the Somali Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab, so they stopped him from moving to Kuwait in 2010. The White House says it's not able to confirm or deny the reports of the man's identity. British police also declined to comment, citing the ongoing investigations. Still, this new information is likely to heat up the fight against the terrorist group and how authorities will now go about their hunt for Emwazi. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Korea's manufacturer sentiment saw a slight rebound this month. The Bank of Korea says the business survey index for the manufacturing sector inched up 1 point from a month earlier to stand at 74. The figure is still below the level seen before the Seoul ferry disaster last April, though. A BSI reading below 100 indicates that more businesses are pessimistic than optimistic about the economy. However, the BSI forecast for the month of March went up 9 points to 82 from a month earlier's forecast. This was attributed to a steady economic recovery in the U.S. coupled with expectations that the Eurozone economy will improve. Korea's rapidly aging population is having a noticeable impact on the nation's workforce. Latest figures show 6 out of 10 employed people in Korea are now over the age of 40. Experts are warning that the domestic economy could soon find itself with a serious shortage of workers. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Just over 44 years old. That was the average age of Korean workers last year. That's 8 years older than 40 years ago when those in their 30s took up the largest portion of the workforce. The average age of workers reached 40 in 1999, and since then it has been on a steady increase. It's no wonder that more jobs were added by the elderly population than the younger generation last year, while the number of employed in the 55 to 64 age group shot up by more than 280,000 in 2014 from a year earlier. That of those in their 20s rose by a mere 56,000. The portion of workers under the age of 40 also slumped to 37% last year. That same figure stood at 61% around 30 years ago. Experts say the country's aging population, coupled with the trend of people feeling forced to re-enter or stay in the job market in the later stages of their lives, has exacerbated the problem. But they say it's going to get even worse when the elderly population trying to prepare for life after retirement leave the job market. The experts add that given the pace at which the population is aging, the workforce could dry up and in turn hurt Korea's economic growth. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Tech reporters and enthusiasts from around the world will soon gather in Barcelona for this year's Mobile World Congress, which kicks off next Monday. Alongside a slew of other top technology brands, Korean tech giants Samsung and LG will be unveiling their latest additions to the lineup. Song Ji-sun gives us a preview.
Samsung is aiming to capture the spotlight ahead of the Mobile World Congress opening on Monday in Barcelona. It's set to unveil two versions of its new Galaxy S6, the standard version and the S6 Edge, at a press conference on Sunday. The Edge is set to have a curved screen that covers two sides, a technology already applied to its Note Edge model on one side. It will likely feature a Quad HD Super AMOLED display, an upgrade from the S5 series, and a case made entirely of metal and glass, drawing comparisons to Apple's iPhone 6. The S6 is also expected to feature the new Samsung Pay system, following the company's acquisition of U.S. mobile technology firm Loop Pay in a bid to make inroads into the mobile payment technology market. Unlike last year when it revealed its Samsung Gear smartwatch alongside the Galaxy S5, Samsung has no plans to introduce a new wearable device this year, so the focus is solely on its new smartphone. Samsung has been losing market share to Apple after the California-based firm launched its large-screen iPhone 6 models. Samsung's global smartphone market share sagged to 25% last year, while Apple's share jumped to 38%. What's more, Chinese handset makers are quickly catching up to the market's number 3 player, LG. In Barcelona, LG Electronics is hoping to draw attention to its new wearable devices. Its new smartwatch is able to connect to a high-speed 4G wireless network, making it the world's first smartwatch equipped with LTE connectivity. The LTE version of the watch Urbane comes with a mobile payment system installed. The watch can also be submerged in a meter-deep water for up to 30 minutes, and it has an extended battery life that allows it to last a few days on standby. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
And there's another global tech giant seeking to release its wearable device. Apple has sent out invitations to a media event on March 9th, where it's expected to announce the highly anticipated details of its Apple Watch. Invitations to the surprise event say simply "spring forward." That phrase and the event's date hint at the official unveiling of the gadget, as Americans will be turning their watches an hour forward for the start of daylight savings on March 8th. Details such as the full price and the watch's specs remain unknown, but it's scheduled to be launched in early April. The smartwatch was first revealed by Apple last September during its iPhone 6 launch.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The skies are looking generally clear, and due to the influence of cold air front passing across the northern side of the peninsula, we've been getting some cold weather across the nation. And all of the morning lows, except on Jeju Island, have dropped below freezing today, and even with the highs making their way above zero, it will feel more like -10 degrees here in the capital. Now, this cold is only to last until today because tomorrow we are expecting our readings to recover back to the seasonal averages. However, rain is expected to fall on Saturday on Chungcheongbuk-do provinces, eventually expanding nationwide on Sunday, which will clear up by noon. Now, checking out the readings for today, Seoul will peak up to 4 this afternoon, while the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will reach up to 5 and 7 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju-Hwalin gets up to 6, Dokdo hits down to 0, while Mount Keungang is chillier at -4 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all the time we have for now. I'm Na Hyun-kyung in Seoul. We'll be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time.